Hey, Brian. Yep. First, second, and third, basically. Hey, Harold, how are you? Let's see if I can get this shared on Telegram. Yep, new one. I don't know. This one's modeled after some, like I'm a profile on a video game or something. Too old and bald to figure that one out. So it's got my face on it though, so I figured it was mine. That's how I put on shirts in the morning. I just kind of groggily go to the closet, and if my face is on it, I know that one's mine. Yeah, should try. It's a pretty easy way to figure out what to wear. You know? Yeah, I saw Mac. Look, John McAfee hasn't created a program since he created the McAfee virus that the McAfee antivirus solved. That was genius, by the way. But since then, he doesn't do that. McAfee, that new McAfee, whatever Ghost, whatever it's called, he didn't create that. Somebody paid him some money, and I'm sure a healthy sum of money, to put his name on it. And if you're paying McAfee to put your name on the product, that means you're planning an exit scam, 100%. There's no way you would have a URL like Ghost by McAfee as your main URL for a product that you plan to have, for 10 or 20 or 30 years, nurture, grow, and turn into a massive enterprise. That thing will come and go quicker than McAfee spends the money they gave him to use his name. So I'm sure they gave him $1 million at least. So he's all right. He's going to be okay. But anybody I think that throws money in there is taking a big risk. You look creepy on that shirt. Yeah. It says, I'll read what it says on the bottom. Maybe somebody will get the reference. I don't know. It says level, boss and CEO. So I guess that's the level I've reached. So good on me. Attack, 990K. So I guess I couldn't make $1 million of attack, but I got 999,000. That's pretty good. My power is also 999. Obviously, I do go to the gym once every 3 years or so. So that's, I guess, almost accurate. Intelligence, 999. Well, of course. As the forehead, I think I should have been $1 million on that one, but whatever. My stamina is only 900K. So somebody's playing a cruel joke on me with that one. Durability is only 900. So I'm super strong, super intelligent, and powerful, but I have my stamina is not that great, and I'm not that durable. And my affiliation is with CoinMetro. So there you go. I guess you can't probably see that down there, but so I don't know what this is. Some type of gamer profile. I don't know. I don't play games, so I have no idea. ETA in the CoinMetro store. I'm doing this literally in my free time, and I haven't had a lot of that. So I already planned to have it launched. I haven't done it yet, obviously. So I think I'm hoping by the end of the month I get it going. Yeah, there's not much, to be honest. If I had a bunch of time to spend on it, and I could probably knock it out in a day or two. I got, I have a general kind of a store up with some graphics. I already created some products at a inside of a printer. I've already obviously tested them. We got some socks in today. Didn't really like the socks though. I'll give you a sneak preview of those. So the QR code there gets you 5 BTC when you open an account and fund it. And there's some CoinMetro logos. It's huge though. Like, look at the size. It's like a cankle. I don't know. Everybody knows what a cankle is. That's when like your ankle and your knee are pretty much the same width. So yeah. So anyway, I've been testing out products and getting products and seeing what the durability is and et cetera, et cetera. And so far so good. So yeah. All right, guys, let's get started. We're 5 minutes in, so we might as well get started now. We don't want to eat up too much time. Yeah, give me a second. Need to pull out my question sheet here. Okay. That spare time could have been used on designing the design. Designing the design. Yeah, I guess it could have, but I'm not a designer, so that'd have been probably wouldn't have came out too well. All right, so let's jump in, guys. So today's the 15th of May. I am Kevin Murcko, as you can see on my T-shirt. I'm CEO here at CoinMetro. I do this every week. Call it This Week in Crypto. Yeah, we have an agenda. Market news comes up first. 10 pieces of market news. I give about a minute to each. If something triggers me, I see we have one or two stories about Binance, I think, this week. So that might take a little longer than 1 minute. I get triggered and I go off on tangents. And anyway, you'll see. So roughly 10 to 15 minutes for market news. Then we roll into Kevin Explains Crypto. I usually have a word, sometimes a phrase that has some connection to crypto. And I try to define it in layman's terms, explain what it means, and sometimes give some examples. All depends. I don't look at these things prior. So I'm looking at what I have on my list today, and I think it's a good one. I hope I can define it. So we'll see. Live Q&A after that, right here on YouTube. And then we move into Reddit questions. We have 2 people that asked questions last week on Reddit. There's like maybe 3 or 4 questions between the 2 posters. So I'll get to those probably before I get to the live AMA, because there's not many this week. And then we'll jump into the AMA. So let me start with the news. If you have a question, you can post it now. If you don't give a shit about news and you feel like just coming back and asking a question, I'll see you in 10 or 15 minutes. So here we go. Market news this week, May 15th, 2020. And number 1 on a list of 10, Dr. Doom and Peter Schiff lambast Bitcoin after it drops $2,000 in 2 days. So look, I think if I had my famous in-person duel with Dr. Doom, where famously after we had our clash, he took a smiling photo with me. So we have. I've talked to Dr. Doom. I've never sat down personally with Peter Schiff, but I see his tweets and I respond to them on occasion. I have to say, there are things these guys say that are absolutely correct. But you have to remember that on the other side of this, you have Anthony Pompliano and let's say Brian Armstrong and all the other, let's say, on the side of Bitcoin people. By the way, that's Oliver. If you guys can see Oliver in the background there, can you see him? See, bad haircut. You can't really see it though because of the sun. Oh, there it is. There it is. Perfect. All right. So you have to remember, you have guys on both sides of the question, both sides of the equation, right? So they're touting their product. These guys are selling gold. The other guys generally are selling Bitcoin, right? So both sides make statements that I would agree with, and both sides make statements I wouldn't agree with. Having said that, it's a bit ridiculous that they come out. Of course, they didn't come out when it shot up from 4K to 10 to try to argue the fact that meant it was worse than gold, right? They could have come out though. If I was supporting gold, I would have come out and said, well, it's super volatile. How does it go from 4 to 10K in such a short amount of time? It's definitely going to fall. There's no way it can sustain this momentum, right? So I guess, at the end of the day, they have points. Bitcoin to me is not a store of value, but to be honest, neither really is gold. At the same time, there's reasons why Bitcoin is great to have in your portfolio. It is volatile. It has been the best performing asset for anybody's lifetime, probably that's currently sitting in this room or elsewhere on the planet. Does that mean it'll be the best performing asset from now? No, it absolutely does not. No way, shape, or form. Does it mean Bitcoin's going to be worth 100K or $1 million in the future? No, it doesn't. Absolutely, it does not. But them just complaining about this. Look, everybody likes to see their names in lights, well, especially those that like to see their names in lights, like these 2 gentlemen. So they get their names in lights. But I guarantee you, when Bitcoin has a spat like right now, where it has some bullish momentum, it's not pushing so high, it's not super volatile, and it's staying within a certain range, they don't say anything. So you can take that for as you want. Number 2 on a list of 10, gold's upside now pales in comparison to Bitcoin. Weiss ratings. Wow, did they need a magnifying glass and a Sherlock Holmes hat to figure that one out? I love it when people take small ranges of time and then make comparisons that sound macro. Like Bitcoin in the last 2 weeks has outperformed gold. So what? Who cares? It's when you buy into any asset there are people, if you're buying into an asset to hold it, hodl it, whatever, you need to look at long-term. I don't give a shit about the upside of Bitcoin since January or the downside of Bitcoin between January and March, or to be honest, the upside of Bitcoin from 2009 until 2020. They are literally meaningless if I'm buying today. Absolutely meaningless. Still a speculative asset. So I don't care really about comparisons, and no one should really. But for some reason, people always drop back on comparisons. So yes, gold. I think gold is up about 12% this year right now, and Bitcoin's up 25 from the start. So while it's double, it's not amazingly different for an asset that has such extreme volatility like Bitcoin. If you believe all the Bitcoin, if you went back 2 years from now and put a Twitter post that said, "Hey guys, what would happen theoretically if the world went into a macro recession, US lost 35%, employment went up to 35%. The US government printed $6 to $10 trillion of new money and pushed it into the system. Other countries were debasing their own currencies. Other countries tied to US, the value, the amount of US printed was affecting their own currencies. If you explain the situation we have right now and said, where do you think Bitcoin price will be if that happens? Every single person that is pro Bitcoin, the minimum amount that someone would say they would guess would say, well, I would have to estimate at least 100K based on that, because you have to understand the scarcity, and then they're going to have the halving as well in 2020. So somebody would say 100K. You'd have McAfee saying he's going to eat his own dick or something, and it's going to go to 2 million. And you'd have somebody else. Pompliano would be probably at 250K, and they'd all be absolutely, positively, 100% without a doubt wrong. So think about that when you read stupid quotes about how great Bitcoin is and how great of an asset it is, right? It's very easy for an asset to go from absolutely zero liquidity and worth a penny to a very small amount of liquidity in comparison to world markets and be worth 10K. That is not such a huge leap, to be honest. I'm not saying it's small, but it's not. You have to understand the math behind that. It's just not that. In order for it to do it again, there needs to be 1,000 times more interest, right? So it gets difficult. Anyway, number 3 on list 10, users blast Coinbase after yet another outage during pre-halving Bitcoin drop. Every trading venue I've ever been a part of, seen, whatever, in times of mass usage, generally tends to have some issues. Why? Because they all use the same technology. No matter how great your matching engine is, no matter great, you're sitting on some type of server infrastructure, you're sitting on an ISP line, 2 ISP lines, 3 ISP lines, you're sitting on some type of non-cosmic technology that can break. So in this thing, I think Coinbase got back up relatively quickly. So I can't say too much bad about Coinbase here. I think they handled it quite well. They handled it better than BitMEX has handled it in the past, that's for sure. But yeah, it just shows that no matter how great the front end looks, lots of back end still is antiquated because there's no one's out there building infrastructure that is any better than what we currently have. Everybody's building front ends that are better. And anyway, we've had that discussion before. Number 4 on the list of 10, YouTube pulls the plug on Cointelegraph's live stream. Yeah, I think 40 minutes to go until the halving, they pulled the plug, and then subsequently started pulling the plug on people that were part of that live stream. So YouTube has been saying, there's a speculation that YouTube either has some algorithm problems, or they're playing around, or there's some conspiracy, or, well, there's a whitelisting process. Many of these companies never went through the whitelisting process, and now, based on viewers, based on whatever, as they hit a certain amount, they start getting looked at, and they're getting locked. Once they go through the whitelisting process, they don't have problems anymore. Tone Vase is a nice example of this. He got blocked, went through the whitelisting process, got unblocked, hasn't had an issue. So just goes to show, a lot of times when we vilify these things, I'm not saying this is, I'm not an expert on this particular topic, but we tend to vilify things without having the information. Look, what Corona has taught us, if anything, is that don't allow yourself to make a decision based on information when you don't have all the information. So I don't know. I don't have all the information here. I can't really have an opinion. What I would say is that get yourself whitelisted, and you probably won't have an issue. And if you do at that point, then you have something you can bring up. Then you have a point where you can stand, a leg you can stand on to actually complain. Number 5 on a list of 10, Nouriel Roubini, the plunge to 8K proved Bitcoin is well controlled and manipulated. So to my buddy Nouriel, if you're listening, As I just said in the last answer, I can't stand when people make decisions based on information or stats when they don't have all the stats, or they choose to ignore some of them to make their point legitimate or try to legitimize their point. The plunge to 8K does not prove at any stretch of the imagination that Bitcoin is well controlled or manipulated. However, it doesn't prove it isn't. So if you, again, this is the type of data that you can look at. And if you're pro Bitcoin, you're going to say it's not controlled by whales. And if you're not pro Bitcoin, you're going to say it does. And you can prove your point at a high level, regardless of what side of the fence you're on. But it absolutely does not, without a shadow of a doubt, without any doubt, prove that it's well controlled and manipulated. Because what happens when the Nasdaq falls and falls by 1,700 points, or not Nasdaq, sorry, the Dow falls by 1,700 points, and we have a stop out, a circuit breaker. Had the circuit breaker not gone, how far would it have gone? Would it have been able to fall the same 20, 25%? Yeah, because it was almost there already. Does that mean it's controlled by whales? No, it means it's controlled by scared investors. Most investors in Bitcoin are retail. Retail tend to follow each other. They're sheep. That's what they do. By definition, they're not smart money by definition. Doesn't mean retail people aren't smart, but by definition, they are quote unquote dumb money. Dumb money follows dumb money. To be honest, smart money follows smart money as well. So yeah, no way does it prove that. It is a completely false statement. Number 6 on the list of 10, Telegram abandons Telegram Open Network. That's the TON network and Gram tokens. I think I can say I told you so on this one, but if we go far back when everybody was touting that Telegram was going to be able to beat this, and I initially said that they knew that the SEC was coming, and they purposely waited to tie in Telegram into the offering by way of their TOS, their terms of service, because they had a plan that they probably would end up only having to refund U.S. contributors and still have the rest of the money. Well, they have abandoned that because basically the U.S. reach and the fact that they didn't go about it the right way and were trying to fight probably the wrong battle, they decided just to give up. So yeah, I couldn't say. I think at one point there was a couple pending cases. There was a Telegram case. There was 2 others at the same time. I don't remember the name of the projects, to be honest. And I said they were pretty much slam dunks, right? There was no way they were going to win the case. We just have to see how they settle. And Telegram, I guess, chose at this point, we'd rather not have the SEC digging into that offering and finding some illegalities and then hitting us with something that might land us in jail. And they gave up. So yeah, I would say that potentially could be a victory as well for other ICOs. They took down a big fish. They're going to make some precedent. That might be good, that they don't need to take down another big fish to make some precedent. So we'll see how that plays out in the future. Number 7 on the list of 10, JP Morgan extends banking services to Bitcoin exchanges. While I'd love to tout this as really big news and great news, I don't see it that way. I guess I sometimes come off as a pessimist, but I kind of refer to myself as a realist. But even listening to myself sometimes, I kind of feel pessimistic. But let me explain this one. So JP Morgan obviously famously came out initially, well, not JP Morgan, JP Diamond. You have to understand that when you talk about major corporations, big corporations, what the CEO says sometimes has absolutely nothing to do with the operations that are happening. It's just his opinion. His opinion may count towards the opinion of the corporation, but it's not, though. So you have to know that, and no smart investor, real savvy investor, is going to come on national TV and give you a hint at what they're doing, especially when they see dramatic upside in the future, because they want most of that. They want most of that dramatic upside they can get. You know, the more buyers that come into Bitcoin means, yes, in short term, maybe the price rises. It also means there's more people that have the ability to sell, right? And you have scenarios in retail which happen like this. Price is here. You get buyers push up the price to here. These guys start selling to take a profit. These guys that bought here are now freaking out because they're going to lose all their profit. And once they start to go negative, they start to sell. And you literally end up with a lower price than where you started for no other reason that sheep follow sheep, right? So no smart investor is going to come out and say, so I can almost guarantee you that when Jamie Dimon was coming out and saying, screw Bitcoin, it doesn't work, they were already researching. They may have already owned Bitcoin, but even if they didn't, they were researching blockchain. They were digging in to make their own issued stablecoin for sure. So it's not a big pivot here for them. This is natural progression. Having said that, if your business doesn't pivot, if you're a business owner and you say, I'm never going to do this, and then you find out that it makes sense to do it and you don't, you're an idiot. Businesses have to be able to pivot. So the fact that he pivoted actually makes him a good businessman, right? It doesn't make him an idiot that then had to follow everybody because it just made sense. It's called pivoting. It's what businesses do. So outside of that, Jamie Dimon aside, you have to take this. Banks don't make money off crypto exchanges. The money that sits with the crypto exchange is probably in trust for the end clients. It means the bank can't loan it out. The bank can't add it to their available loan balance. They can't fractional reserve on that money and loan out more money. Those companies aren't taking loans from the bank. They're making transactional income, which means and there's probably mostly ACH transfers because it's in the US for the most part. They probably won't even allow SWIFT transfers at the beginning because it's too high of a risk profile. ACH transfers, the bank's making pennies per transfer. Even with massive amounts of volume, it means more compliance oversight. They're not making money. So they're doing it for another reason. And they specifically picked two companies with bit licenses. They specifically picked them to do this, to pilot with. And it's probably because they're looking to either find one or maybe use both as partners to either expand their own stablecoin or smart token that they created to possibly go into another project. Or there's going to be, they're simply testing to perhaps integrate some type of maybe staking or some type of interest-bearing project, and they need the assistance of these companies to do it. And to get them in the door, they gave them banking services. But it's not big news for crypto in general. Doesn't mean that the day's coming when JP Morgan's going to be banking all crypto exchanges. No. There's definitely something under the hood here that we don't know about yet, guaranteed. Number 8 on the list of 10, Silicon Valley startup Carta plans private stock exchange to rival NASDAQ. This one's kind of interesting. So Carta is a company that basically does cap table management as well as securitization or the electronic version of stocks for private companies. So if you have a big private entity, you don't want to go public, but you want to be able to have a cap table. You want to be able to have that. You want to be able to see investors to see who invested in what, and you want to have an electronic version of some type of stock that people can trade. You can do it there. Most of these are big companies that just haven't gone public yet. I think even the company we use for live chat on CoinMetro Intercom is there. Anyway, they have 14,000 companies, and they've issued billions and billions and billions worth of private stock. So basically, NASDAQ has their own private, and most people probably don't know this. It's called Second Market, I think. NASDAQ owns a company in the US called Second Market, which allows private companies to issue stock and run cap table management. So they want to compete with them. It's similar to what the CSD and CoinMetro want to do, with one major caveat, is that we're going cross-border and global. These guys are basically staying in the US, and they're only dealing with private companies. Now, we obviously will start with private companies, but those private companies will essentially become public, but through another means other than the traditional means of an IPO with us. So, but it's interesting. It's an interesting. I looked at Carta quite substantially when we did some research on who was doing what in the settlement space. But yeah, only U.S. focused, only U.S. companies, and they're competing with NASDAQ's Second Market. Number 9 on the list of 10, Visa applies for digital dollar blockchain patents. Yeah, this kind of, I would expect this probably to get contested, I imagine, because I didn't look at the patent. I don't know how intricate it is, exactly what they're trying to patent. But there's so many banking consortiums, and then there's central banks looking to do CBDC. So I guess it depends. You have Libra, obviously. So I guess it depends on how they structured it. I don't know if they get granted the patent or not. Maybe they do. Good, great for them if they get the patent, because many of these type of stablecoin smart tokens are going to come out in the future from different companies, especially to perform like instantaneous settlement, balance sheets, movement. Between daughter companies, sister companies. So good on them, but let's see if the patent actually gets approved first, then we can talk about it again. Number 10 on a list of 10, analyst explains how equities leak could send Bitcoin to 56K. I love the exact 56K here. I'm just going to look at this because I don't know exactly what he means by equities leak. Says, let's see. Bitcoin is up by more than 60% in the last 2 months. This is another one, right? Up by 60% in the last 2 months when it fell 50%. So it's not up. It's up in the last 2 months. You should go to jail for that statement, basically. Because if you put that into a prospectus, you would go to jail. Because it's obviously the price rose by 60% from low, but 2 months and 3 days, exactly. It's anyway. So anyway, let me go back to Bitcoin return a major boost. Okay, equities market 1 trillion leak as midterm price. Oh, so money's leaving equities is essentially what this guy's means. Okay, so this guy's assumption is that 1 trillion worth of dollars is leaving equities, which is definitely not the case. I don't know when this was written, but definitely a lot of that money has flown back in equities. So the government has been pumping money into equities through ETFs as well, which is unprecedented and means a shit show for the next 10 or 20 years. But so he's assuming that a good portion of that is going to end up in Bitcoin. My question would be, why would he make that assumption? We've seen movements over the past 10 years that Bitcoin has existed, 11 years. We've seen moves out of equities, into equities, out of commodities, money moving out of the bond market, treasury market. We've seen a global recession. We've seen different micro and macro things around the world in different regions that have caused money to massively flow out of economies. And we have not seen what he's predicting. Now he's assuming we're going to see it just because, why not? And then that's going to magically push the Bitcoin price up to 56K. You have to imagine, though, that most people that are involved in equities are traders. And the most of that money would be tied to a trader. Traders are probably trading on platforms they already know. So they may be buying into maybe derivatives of crypto. So the money may go to Bitcoin, but it's going to go into a synthetic that is not going to affect the underlying price as if they bought deliverable Bitcoin. So even if a large amount flowed in, it necessarily wouldn't mean such an influx in pricing. And I don't know how he's getting the 56K. He's probably looking at Binance's order book and saying, well, if a trillion came in, I don't know what he's looking at. But there's really no way to make an accurate prediction. I would say this is generally false. Yet there's already been money that's flowed into Bitcoin when people pulled out a percentage. You famously had famous trader go on, say 2% of his hedge fund is in Bitcoin, which to me is a big sell signal. But yeah, anyway, I don't see that happening. But it would be great if the guy was right. I mean, I don't necessarily see it happening, but I would be happy to see it. Okay, so that concludes the news. Let's run in, I guess, to Kevin Explains Crypto now. It's probably a good idea, I guess. Give me a second, because I lost. I lost myself here. Where's my little cheat sheet? Here we go. Okay, so move this guy over here. Sorry, guys. Little screen cleanup. So today's Kevin Explains Crypto term is zero knowledge proof. It's a pretty cool one. Let's see how good I can actually explain it, though. Zero knowledge proof. So this was actually something that was developed. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember the exact year, but MIT 1980s originally, right? So like most of the technology that's used in crypto, it's not new. Though it sounds new because no one's ever heard of it, because why would you have? For most laymen's, most regular people, unless you dealt with math and cryptography, there's no reason for you to have heard of this. Now, because Bitcoin has become more of a household name, zero knowledge proof, even though that has nothing to do with Bitcoin per se, crypto in general, it's now on people's tongues, right? So zero knowledge proof is basically gives you the ability to prove to someone, or for one party to prove to another party that they know the value of something without giving the other party any information apart from the fact that they know the value, right? So it enables complex transactions to happen and to prove that the other person is actually should be the one involved in that transaction without that person needing to provide any, let's say, any non-necessary information to the end party. So it's proof without gaining any additional knowledge. Zero knowledge proof. One way to think of that, I guess, in terms of blockchain is normally with a blockchain, in order to prove a transaction, you need to have the entire chain. You need to prove that transaction came, and each block contains information pegging itself to the last block to prove that it's actually part of the chain. Here, you could have a scenario where that information, necessarily all of it, would not need to actually be presented. There would be a way for X to prove to Y that they are who they say they are and the transaction is legitimate without X having to give to Y the information that actually links them to that transaction. Okay, 1989. I think Harold found that, or knew. I don't know if you knew that information or you found it, but good on you, Harold. So 1989. I knew it was the 80s. I probably would have said like 86 or 85 to be honest, but whatever. So yeah, zero knowledge proof. That's what it is. So there you go. It's complex. It's kind of hard for me to explain. I guess really put it into, but that's what I guess it's whatever. You don't need all the knowledge to prove that you should be involved in the transaction you're involved in. So it's like you don't need to give them you don't need to roll in and show your passport and verify who you are or whatever with a simple piece of information without giving any real connected any other connected information. You can prove that you should be there, basically. Okay, so moving on. We have some Reddit questions. I'm going to get to those guys first, if you don't mind, and then I'll jump into the AMA. So from, it's probably supposed to mean something, but author's name is DA9EL84. The 9L84? I don't know. Maybe those numbers are supposed to look like letters. I don't know. I'm getting old. I have no idea. So it says, hey, Kev, that's me. Could you elaborate on how the rebate system doesn't make XCM a security when it essentially is revenue sharing? I don't see how it's revenue sharing. And a security, even if it was revenue sharing, and I'm going to work that around my mind right now to see if I can figure out why you think it's revenue sharing. Even if it was revenue sharing, if you're making revenue based on what you're doing, it's directly tied to your interaction with the platform, it is not a security. If you make a revenue share based on the collective work of others, that becomes a collective investment scheme. And it could potentially make, which already would require some licensing, and it could potentially make the asset tied to that collective investment scheme a security. Then you say, could you imagine a scenario where users use the rebate system, but through settings toggled a switch that auto-converted their XCM from rebates into one of the pair offerings, in case they didn't want to hold XCM, but still wanted to utilize the rebate function? So I guess, but is it all that difficult really just to convert the rebates you get to something else right on the exchange? That makes an additional fee. That creates more demand on XCM. That drives, at the end of the day, the XCM price and lets us vault more XCM. So is it just a user experience question, or is this more, that's what it looks like to me. And moving on, one last question on Reddit. Rock Paper Bird. Ola Hevin, that's with a J. How are the new marketing guys doing? Having heard or seen anything from them till now? So I guess haven't. Well, there's no reason you should hear about anything from marketing. If they're doing their job right, they're busy, right? So we have ads running right now, test ads running in the US. We've been testing copy. We already have some good metrics. We've already changed landing pages based on those metrics. There's lots of work going on. There's copy being written. There's rebranding happening. There's new homepage being derived. There's copy for that homepage being derived to drive conversion. There's all kinds of things happening in the background. And we already have live ads in the US that are being tested and A and B tested. So lots going on. And I would say in June is when for other parts of the world, as well as in the US, just a more expansive marketing effort, you will start to see something. Okay, let's run into the AMA here. Let's see. Okay. When will you market the marketing? I don't know what that means, but I just answered something on marketing, so hopefully that helps. I don't hope you will market CoinMetro with the design it has. And we're in a process of rebranding. I have to be honest though, guys. And I'm going to be super honest here. So I don't know what words I'm going to use to be honest, but just get ready for this one. With the right marketing, people will buy dog shit. And I'm sure everybody in their collective world, you can prove that to yourself really easy. How many of you have been up at 2:30 in the morning and saw an infomercial for like a plastic bowl that makes bacon salad in the microwave or something? And those guys sold it. Why? Like, who would buy this? The show looks like shit. The infomercial looks like crap. The typography looks like it's from 1983, but people buy it. We can equate this definitely into the crypto sphere. There are a ton of crypto websites that look horrible, that I don't like personally, that maybe other people love, I don't know, that do quite well. So for me personally, the rebranding effort is one that everybody in the company for the last two going on 3 years for some, have seen this brand. He's seen this brand that we haven't marketed yet. And what I don't want is to create this idea internally, and that goes with the community as well, that the brand doesn't sell. I know that's not the case. We just haven't sold the brand. It's not that the brand doesn't sell, but I want to get that idea out of people's minds. So creating a slight rebranding, making it fresh, gets that idea out of people's minds. And new people will like it, and old people will like it. And we get this idea that the brand doesn't sell out of people's heads, when in fact it's that we didn't sell the brand. So yes, there will be a rebranding, and it's going to be cool, and it's going to happen very shortly. And hey Ollie, classic. Okay, Oliver is big. Holy shit, Oliver is real. Yes, he is real. He's not a figment of my imagination. So it's not me like playing two roles or something. Kevin really needs a debate with Peter Schiff. Yeah, I would love to have a debate with Peter Schiff. I'd love to debate anybody. I'm down to debate whoever wants to debate. I'm not scared to debate anybody. I'll do it live, taped, virtual, in person, whatever. Bring it on. I could try to scout. I think it'd be a great idea once we do a bit of marketing. We have a bit more people know us a bit more. No problem. I would definitely do it. What's your thought on synthetic assets? So most, if not all, modern markets, traditional markets, have synthetics somewhere. And synthetics are usually brought in at some point. Synthetics are almost the same reason why we went off Bretton Woods. Bretton Woods, gold standard, right? Every gold bug in the world cries about the gold standard. The problem with the gold standard is you can only extract so much gold out of the planet, and there's only so much gold in the planet. At some point, the need to have money, whether it's because there's a war, there's a recession, there's whatever, you need more money. You just can't get it. It doesn't help anybody. Yeah, if you have a ton of money, it may make the dollar money more valuable, right? But you need more money. You need more market cap. You can't get it because you don't have the gold to back it. So the gold standard at one point breaks. Not that the printing money standard is good. At some point that breaks as well. But most things humans have created, at some point they break, right? So synthetics usually come in once a market has hit a point where it absolutely needs new liquidity. And we haven't gotten there yet. We don't even have enough liquidity to support the market we have for the most part. And we already have synthetics. So I think synthetics are it's kind of the cart in front of the horse. And they get a bad rap, especially on margin. People say, people are getting wrecked. These guys, blah, blah, blah. These are bad people. Nobody puts a gun to their head. For me, if you're an adult and you make the decision to gamble or whatever, and you get wrecked, you got wrecked, bro. I mean, that's it. There should be information available that tells you can get wrecked. If you don't read it, you're going to get wrecked. If you read it and decide to take the risk, you may get wrecked. That's it. I'm coming back synthetics. So I think it's too early for synthetics. I think synthetics are a necessary function when a market reaches a point where it absolutely needs a synthetic. We haven't not reached that point. Any updates on the Japanese resort token project? Update, I guess, would be is that legal documentation has started to be drafted this week. Officially, we had a few calls. We have designers. There are designers working on the websites for that tokenized project, working on different materials that are needed. Timeline looks like July, first 2 weeks of July. There's some implementation that needs to happen on the Ignium side for swapping between those assets, between the bond, revenue share, equity growth token. That's in the next sprint, in the next 4 weeks. Moving along as scheduled. Will it be possible to buy tech stocks at CoinMetro in the future or leverage trade them? We would need different licensing to do that. That's for sure. It's a possibility. So in the beginning, that was kind of the idea, multi-asset trading. And that still is, I would say, generally the idea to have an all-encompassing product. In the short term, though, obviously, it's not something we're looking at. We would need to have licensing to be able to offer those, licensing we don't currently have now. And MTF would not be enough, though MTF is probably the first bigger license we would look to acquire. Broker-dealer, which is what we would essentially need for what you're speaking of, could potentially happen afterwards. Project tokenizing socks, awesome. Next 3 important steps for CM. Well, those 3 important steps haven't much changed. We're just deeper or like into sub-steps of those steps. We hired already, but we just brought in first day on the job yesterday for a new compliance officer who I think who has a great legal background and is now crunching through all our policies, what kind of documents you need to submit for onboarding, what the tiers look like, going through with an attempt to streamline how we onboard people so that we can get to the absolute most streamlined, compliant, kind of best 2 worlds. And so I'm excited about that. It's cool. So that's definitely one of the main things. We are about to go into our first major marketing push. Before we do that, and as we're leading up to that and testing, it's about that rebranding, that getting the products fine-tuned, new dashboard out, markets page out, other little small products out as well to all help with the onboarding process, the initial look of CoinMetro and the look and feel, and then the ability to cross-sell, getting all our marketing channels and funnels done so that we can cross-sell via email and that we're monitoring and that there's just different trigger points for when we have a trader that's trading high volume but losing money, high volume making money, low volume losing money, low volume making money, trade managers making money, losing money, people that have come in for debit cards or whatever to get them into the crypto side, passive income earners looking for other passive income. All those different types of triggers are all so lots of different things, but they all revolve around onboarding, look and feel, and cross-selling. So lots of marketing involved and lots of UI, basically, and some legal stuff. What are your thoughts on these new margin future options trading dApps? I haven't looked at many of them. I indirectly have looked at 1 or 2 because of Ignium, because I've had some calls. I think part of the future is, look, the future is going to be hybrids. Decentralized kind of peer-to-peer, whether it be stock trading, securities trading, bond trading, is going to be part of that future. There's always going to, because it can generally go, for the most part, unregulated, at least the majority of the action. There's always going to be a need for a centralized option, always, because the centralized option, no matter how advanced the tech gets on the decentralized side, for the decentralized side to get faster, it's going to reach a point, it's going to get to a point where it can be the fastest it can be based on network speed. Yeah. And that's exactly what happens with centralized. It's as fast as it can be based on tech as well, but network speed. The network speed gets faster, the decentralized get faster, so does the centralized. But centralized doesn't have to move from point A to point B from here to Taiwan. It moves from point A to point B on the same rack, same server. Decentralized options will never, ever be able to get to the point where they're faster than centralized. So for high-frequency traders of the like, bank traders, creating books, creating the most liquid books, because if you have all decentralized nodes, you're really not going to ever get to the point where you create a massive liquid market. That's going to become very, very difficult. And if you are part of that liquid, even if it is a liquid market, you're probably going to opt to get some of your liquidity in that centralized marketplace because, well, it's just quicker and faster, and it means you can feed off the liquidity better. So even if you have this big decentralized universe, it's probably going to all be almost aggregated into some centralized universe somewhere else so that it can reap some of that extra liquidity. So I think it's great that we're moving in that direction. Even Ignium will move in that direction. We may even launch some type of peer-to-peer abilities in the first instance when we launch in July. But again, I think hybrid and having a choice Because look, if you're a private company and you just want to sell some stock, you don't care about the speed. But if you're in a secondary market trade and you want to get out of $1 billion worth of a stock and you need to do it in 2 months, you absolutely need centralization, 100%. Some offer zero slippage, very tight spreads, low fees, huge liquidity. Yeah, I have to look at those specific. I can tell you that as far as I can even fathom, low fees, okay. Tight spreads are usually a function of liquidity, but don't necessarily have to be as long as somebody's taking some risk. Huge liquidity, I would doubt. Leverage, okay. Well, leverage doesn't have anything to do with them being a DApp, right? You can offer leverage wherever you want. So I'd have to look a bit more, but like I said, I still think my premise stands. It's a hybrid future. Or an option future where you have options. Could you explain why so many tokens don't want to be considered securities? Isn't it just a compliance thing? It is a regulatory, legislative compliance thing. In some cases, it's a going to jail thing. So if your token's considered a security, one, it can't be traded on a non-licensed platform that isn't licensed to trade securities. Right now in the world, platforms licensed to trade securities that have tokenized options is very, very small. And if you go on those platforms like T0, for example, in the US, there's no liquidity. Nobody's buying or selling anything. They've done an extremely low amount of volume because for the most part, they're only open to accredited investors. So you're closing the window to who can use your token, which by default, you're closing the utility of that token. You're shrinking the liquidity of that token because of that same reason. So, and on the other side, if you're trading a security token, forget the token word, without authorization or with the right regulation, you, as the issuer, could go to jail, and as the beneficiary could lose access to your, or as the owner or investor could lose access to your instrument or the money, or the instrument goes to zero if the issuer goes to jail. So it's more complex than just compliance. What's next on the release schedule? I wish Oliver was behind me right now. We have if you look at the roadmap, that roadmap is obviously still valid. So. I know we have another KYC push. We have dashboard. We have markets page. We have deposit and withdrawal retooling. We have pound availability, pound pairs, pound funding, faster payments. We've got a lot of things, guys. But those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. Why not accept what you are, not XCM, many other tokens? Yeah, that's exactly why. It's not the good thing. Look, the good and bad thing about legislation. Now, remember, everybody blames the regulator. The regulators don't make the laws, guys. They enforce them. The legislator makes the law. So that's your Senate, your Congress, your House, Parliament, whatever. And to even go more granular, the guys that get paid the money don't usually write the laws either. It's their assistants. So it's lowly paid junior lawyers that usually write the legislation, with the oversight of maybe somebody who has a bit more experience. Not that some legislators don't play part, but most of them don't. And to go even more granular than that, a lot of times it's the constituents that make a proposal that then ends up with those low-level lawyers that are assistants to the legislator. And so it's like, CoinMetro writing a proposal to Parliament accepting the proposal, well, somebody in Parliament accepting it, putting their name on it, presenting it after it's been reviewed by their low-level staff. So you can't really blame the regulator, but the issue is the good and bad of legislation is that it's loose. It's never exact, and it's good and it's bad. It's good because on the side of the government, that means the interpretation is what matters. If they say something's illegal, they can interpret and say, well, this is what that means. But on your side, you can say, well, no, this is what we believe it means. And a judge can say, no, this is what it means. The judge makes the precedent, right? Judicial precedent usually plays a big role in how legislation evolves over time, especially in countries like the US, for example. So when you create an asset, you have the ability to interpret the law and create the asset so it just is right outside the definition of a security. If you don't take the time to do that and you accept who you are, you're limiting what you can do. What happens is most people that went through this process didn't know what they were doing, didn't bother to pay the legal advice, didn't know how to structure it themselves, and ended up structuring things they're calling utility, which were actually securities, which at the end of the day got them in trouble. So I would have to say it's their fault. And yeah, I would say accept what you are. If you want to make a security, do it, but do it the right way. Do it the right way. File, do what you need to do, pay the money, pay the lawyers, etc. Anything new in BizDev? USD, not this week, unfortunately, but definitely some BizDev going around. Trying to put together an agreement right now with a company that provides some really cool data that we're going to be able to use to create some indicators that give sentiment based on social media. I think I talked about this before. Also ties into some client base they have, as well as potentially on the investment side as well. Talking to as well a few other in the marketing realm, how we're going to do some marketing, some cross sells, some an education platform as well. We're looking to reach out to. There's a lot. Most of the biz dev right now is revolved around marketing, client acquisition, and there's a few things. There's a few things in the works outside of what I just mentioned. I remember when the new dashboard was supposed to release in February. Where the hell is it? Yeah, still being worked on. So it's I would say it's potentially function wise ready to roll, but it needs some design support, and that's what's getting worked on now. You know, it's just it's on schedule actually. It's changed. There was a markets page added. There was some functionality that was added in after that. So instead of releasing what we had in February, we kept going. What are the goals of the CSD for the Montenegro authority side, and what are the metrics for them to know if the idea works for them or not? Well, the metrics for them are mainly based around the sandbox itself, right? For them, the individual products in the sandbox aren't there to generally give a specific benefit to the country. The benefit to the country is the sandbox. The metrics for the sandbox are getting companies in the country to establish in the country, to go through the sandbox, to potentially license themselves in the country and provide services to the country for benefit of the country and its people, right? It's not about individuals. So, but if we try to break it down a bit outside of the sandbox, the KPIs for the sandbox or what they're really looking to achieve, yeah, they want business to come to Montenegro. They want to fuel, they want to ease some pain points that the government has, and entice people to go there to test them, because they can do it without having to acquire licensing first. And if it works in Montenegro, it'll probably work somewhere else, right? So that's generally what the sandbox is. If we look at the CSD for Montenegro, if the CSD functions right, and we're able to prove the point, and the point is simply that liquidity exists around the world, and the ICO bubble kind of proved this. The reason why that retail liquidity hasn't been tapped is because there hasn't been infrastructure. The highways, roads, and et cetera weren't built so that capital could connect to the companies that need it. And the point that we're trying to prove is that with the right infrastructure, the money goes where it's needed, and the income goes back to where the money came from. And if we prove that, Montenegro having a market that they could be able to take advantage of, having companies in Montenegro being able to raise money from outside Montenegro, and bringing in companies that don't even have a Montenegro footprint into Montenegro to raise money from outside Montenegro and bring that capital in the country would be a great thing. So for CSD's particular, and CoinMetro is tied into that, because for CoinMetro, we are the secondary market. Without the secondary market, primary is kind of useless. Yeah, the company raises the money, but when the investors can't get out, the next time they need to raise the money, or the next company to raise money, it's going to be more difficult. If there's an active secondary market where people can get out if need be, it makes the whole thing run smoother. Does the rebranding mean an entirely new website and exchange look? And will you be waiting for this to complete before the big marketing push? Rebranding is mostly front end, so it means a new front end. Logo will probably stay for now, but there will be a rebranding of the design and copy, the words on the homepage. Dashboard as well is getting that's not a rebranding, that's just it's getting redone. As far as the platforms, they're going to generally stay. Simplex will be going the way of the dodo, and it'll be integrated as buy, sell, swap into that dashboard. It'll make it easier to go through the process, and it'll add some additional functionality that isn't available on exchange or margin, where you'll be able to swap between alts that aren't available, that don't have trading pairs. But we're not talking about the colors of the brand will change a bit. That's not really going to affect the platforms, so to speak. It'll affect the dashboard a bit, but not really the platforms. And no, the front, we will have a reduced front end. Landing pages will already have the rebranding. We will use specific landing pages for marketing. The homepage, even if the homepage wasn't 100% ready from the time we're launching the ads, we would still launch. But the goal is to have those things ready. But even if they're not, we will still start to launch, because we'll have landing pages that are geared in towards the new strategy. GBP and virtual IBAN still on track? Yes. Development-wise, we should be ready this weekend. And from administrative side, we've set a date of June 1st. So on or before. Of course, that depends as well on the provider, but that's the date that they're also aware of that date. So when CM becomes profitable, what will your goals be to achieve if you were to go for external funding? When CM becomes profitable, what will be your goals to achieve if you were to go for external funding? Okay, so even when we're profitable, guys, we will raise more money. 100%. We may do it in a different way. We may do it something like you've seen, like companies will have a foundation. They'll raise the money through the foundation and then invest that, buy smaller companies, merge them with CoinMetro, et cetera. But the goal of the money is always, the goal of the money when you're building a company is to build the company. The goal of the money after that is to expand the company. Expansion usually means client acquisition. It means mergers and acquisitions of smaller companies, tech that you might want to integrate into your system, all for the goal of getting more clients, as well as for us, because we're regulation. So establishing regulated entities around the world that can allow us to expand our service offering into those parts of the world, or expand our service offering into other products like stocks, bonds, equities, blah, 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 et cetera. Banking services. Are you guys going to implement Parsec's notification system anyhow? We will, I think. We will at some point, yes. We haven't done it yet just because we've been busy. They've been busy kind of building out the product, and it's getting better and better over time. But yes, we will get there. Why would U.S. client would want to put funds in Estonia and also invest in Montenegro? I get these questions a lot, and they always baffle me. And I've owned companies in places of the world that have been great. Vanuatu, okay? Obviously, people hear that and go, where is that? They can't even find it on a map. That happens with Estonia, I guess, as well. Taking out the fact of where it is, investors look for opportunity, right? I'm not saying there's not opportunity in the U.S., but generally speaking, to get into a fantastic opportunity in the U.S., you need to be an accredited investor, by way of the law, by the way. Most people aren't. Now, the accredited investor, supposedly, I've heard rumors in the next couple of weeks, the SEC will finally revamp, and it'll be based on experience rather than money. But that's not going to make too much of a difference, because most people won't be able to pass the experience test. And even if they do, they'd be lying about it. You could right now lie about your income. It's not that difficult, guys. I'm not saying everybody should do that, but point is that most people aren't accredited, okay? So the opportunities come usually in emerging markets. Emerging markets are where the opportunity is, right? Big companies usually made their biggest amount of money on emerging markets. You can look at any company. The U.S., look at the biggest players in the U.S. outside of tech, because tech is not just in the U.S. Google makes lots of money in China and in emerging markets than they make now in the U.S., right? For sure. But if you look at the mainstays in the U.S., right? Railroad, the big money where it used to be, railroads, energy, telecommunications. They're making no money in the U.S. anymore. The majority of that industry is over with. Where they made money after the U.S. was in emerging markets. Telecom in emerging markets even 10 years ago, and I'm talking Mexico, South America, massive. Carlos Slim, one of the richest men in the world, Lebanese descent, Mexican citizen, made his money because he bought Telmex from the government for $1 back in the early 90s. And now it then expanded across all. So my point is to say that smart investors don't give a shit what country they're putting the money in. It's all about the opportunity in the project. people that generally tend to lamaze and really think hard about, oh, Africa, I don't know about that. The continent. Oh no. Where are these guys based? Oh, Brazil. Oh, I don't know about Brazil. Those are the guys that never make any money because they don't take the risk and they don't go and take the opportunity. Having said that, Estonia is in the EU. I don't get, people tend to say that Estonia doesn't. I just had a conversation with somebody that was talking about a German company that might want to invest in. Oh, but you guys are Estonia. Would you be willing to go to Germany and open a company? And my response to that was, yeah. If somebody says, look, we'll give you 5 million, but you need to have a German company. First, I would explain to them how asinine that statement is. And then I would just open a company in Germany, and 5 days later, they'd give me the 5 million. And I'd still operate most of my operations out of Estonia and just write German HQ on my website. And if that's what makes a smart investor put money in something, then they're not a smart investor. Estonia is under the same laws, Germany, same directives, same everything, whatever. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I went a bit off on tangent there. How much are you looking to raise for the CoinMetro bond? 2.5 million euro, because it's the threshold by which we can offer it legally across all Europe without having to register a prospectus in each European country. What are the chances the CSD won't work? The same chances that any business won't work. So all businesses carry risk. The biggest risk for every business is that you get the business up and running. Well, one of the biggest risks is you don't get the business up and running. The second biggest risk is that you get the business up and running and you don't get any clients. But that's the risk for every business. So the logo kind of sucks, to be honest. Thank you, Bjorn. Appreciate that. Yeah, look, I don't know. I guess I've had other people tell me exactly the opposite. The name of the company is CoinMetro. It's a metro and a coin. I guess it's a little too obvious, and that I would agree with. And over time, I guarantee you the logo will probably change. Just like every company, as you grow, you adapt, you change. But the logo is not going to stop people from coming on the website. The logo is not going to stop from trading with us. So I don't think it's the biggest hurdle right now. What is marketing going to look like? Banners, ads on websites, social media. Where are the products you're marketing? Bonds, debit cards, real estate projects, and also great marketing points. This question gets asked, I think, almost on a weekly basis. Marketing's going to look like marketing. Marketing's going to look like having, geez, don't you love when somebody calls you 7 times in a row? Like, obviously, if I didn't pick up the first time, I'm doing something, leave me a message. So it's going to look like marketing, right? So we have Jesus Christ, people behind the scenes that will be like affiliates and ambassadors. We have sharing agreements for traffic. We will do press releases. We will do different types of retargeting, social media. Not so much in banners, but the banners are useful for specific types of advertising. We may do some A/B tests. I think we might have already had. We may even do some more physical media in different regions. So a mixed bag, which is what you need to do. What are the products you're marketing? Well, initially 3 main projects, which products we already have, which is exchange, margin, and what do we got? Exchange, Tram. Tram's a big one, guys. I think people underestimate that one. Bonds, the CoinMetro bond, because it's legal in Europe, we will be able to advertise. We can't advertise trading of the bond. I believe we should be able to advertise the primary issuance or the whitelist, but that remains to be seen. That's a regulatory issue. But I think we will be able to do that. But that'll be mainly advertised through Ignium, actually, and CoinMetro through Montenegro, not necessarily through our European operations. Debit cards, once they're ready, will definitely be advertised. Real estate project will be advertised by the real estate project, by probably a primary issuance platform that does real estate offerings, as well as Ignium and CoinMetro through Montenegro. How much are you going to spend in marketing? I've covered this as well, but I'll try to cover it again here. Let's take some notes this time, guys. So we're not going to throw a huge amount of money right away at marketing. Doesn't make any sense. The goal for marketing, we are spending maybe let's say 5K, 6K this month on A/B testing. The A/B testing is going to get us to a point where we understand what copy works, what landing page orientation works. Once we have that, we ramp up a bit more going into June, where we ramp up and spend a bit more money to make sure that the cost per acquisition, the click-through rates all maintain, And then we set a relatively small amount, maybe 10 to 20K, something like that. That 10 to 20K, if we get our acquisition cost, let's say to 10 euro, means 1,000 to 2,000 clients. That 200 to 2,000 clients makes us 10 to 20K that next month, depending on how many clients. We take that same budget, we roll it back in, that 10 to 20K, plus the additional 10 to 20K we just made on those new clients. We now have a 50K budget. We spend that gets us another 5,000 clients. We roll, or 10,000 clients, 5,000 clients, sorry. We roll that into the next. Now, you get the point. Very quickly, you create your marketing budget out of good marketing. You don't throw a bunch of money at marketing hoping to get good marketing. You take a small amount of money, you create the good marketing, and then you roll over the money. Very quickly, within a 6-month time period, we have enough clients where we're essentially getting into profitability. So it's not about how much you're going to spend on marketing initially, let's say. It's about the marketing process. How's the progress on the debit cards? Moving along. We haven't submitted designs yet, but I would suspect end of next week, possibly, or middle of the week after, having a design. So end of May, having a design ready to roll, submitting. That means roughly beginning of July that we should be able to roll out. And that's essentially the timeline, as I told last week. Why would a European send his funds to Binance? Yeah. It's all about opportunity, guys. Real investors, look, Investor 101. Look for opportunities, due diligence, run with it. Don't do your due diligence before the opportunity, because you will lose out. Because if your due diligence is only on the fact, well, they're based in X country, I'm not going to invest, then forget it. If you invest only in, US, you have to get very lucky, or only in only in Germany, only in the US. 9 times out of 10, you're not going to be the guy with the success story on Forbes, 10 years later. Old money, that was a bit different. When those markets were smaller and still maybe first world, but still emerging in terms of the size of the markets. Now we have saturated markets in most first world countries. I mean, look what happened in China. They basically, Shanghai turned from a swamp into a metropolis in like 10, 15 years. Is CM able to pay off its shareholders? Are CM able to pay off its shareholders? I don't know what that means. You mean buy out the shareholders, or do you mean pay dividends? Dividends happen when CoinMetro is profitable and when dividends are voted on. Just because we're profitable doesn't mean we pay a dividend. If we make 50K a month extra and we made 500K over the course of a year, I would almost guarantee you that 500K would be reinvested. Why? Well, because the goal is to make more money over the course, provide more services, not to enrich our shareholders. Obviously, we want to keep our shareholders happy, but that first interim when you become profitable, you need to make sure you maintain profitability, which usually means reinvestment. A portion of it, though, obviously can be paid in dividends. So if you're talking about dividends, I don't want to put a timeline on it because it's going to be speculative. If you follow that 6-month timeline, we start. Let's say we start ads in July, August, September, October, November, December, January. We start to see break even, a little bit of profit. It takes another 6 months or so to really get into a profit bubble. That puts us into June of next year. We start to see profits end of the first year. That's next year, end of 2021. We have some excess cash. We may choose at that point to pay a small dividend back, small percentage-wise, back to our shareholders to keep them happy. But it could happen before that as well. But you need to be realistic with these type of things. As a shareholder, what a shareholder should want is overall long-term profitability, not short-term dividends. I agree that the tram is a huge selling point. We need more managers. Yep, but the way to get more managers is to advertise it. So I'm looking forward to get 2,500 euro limit on margin lifting. Yep, so am I. It's been several months and still only Harold and Dean. Yeah. Look, because we haven't advertised. Again, it's not that the product is not sellable. It's that we haven't sold it. And that's what we're going to do. First, you'll get investors. Investors will bring managers. And in some cases, managers will bring their own investors. But we have to advertise. Both leverage and collateral are both in the pipeline. I would expect those to be increased before we launch mainstream marketing. There's a few things that we want to happen before that, and that's getting GBP, Euro online, getting those things finalized. We're already over time, guys. I didn't even realize. I'm actually, and I'm supposed to be on a call, actually. Jesus, hold on. Give me 1 second. Okay, guys, I'm going to have to cut it short. Let me just see. Yeah, due diligence is important. But again, you shouldn't let jurisdiction be something that knocks it off your list. Any update on merge? Okay. Merge with, I did step down as CEO, yeah, because I wasn't really active for 2 years. It made no sense for me to continue with my name there. Any update on merging FX Pig and the CM? Merging, sharing resources back and forth between services is still a definite possibility, but it's going to make a lot more sense once we build up our user base. Yeah, I hope I'm an integral part of CoinMetro. If not, I think if I wasn't, it'd be a problem. So yeah, I take care of myself. I take care of myself as best as I possibly can. But I'm kind of used to this lifestyle, and I used to stay up a lot longer than I do now. I try to get sleep and pay attention to health as much as I can. But I hope I think I have to be an integral piece. I hope I have to be an integral piece. That's why I'm here. Okay, guys, thank you very much. I'm sorry I can't take any more questions, but I'm about 10 minutes over, and I'm missing a call right now. So as I usually say, spend time with friends and family. Lockdowns are starting to come out in different parts of the world. Maybe you can actually see your friends and family. If not, Zoom them, Skype them, WhatsApp them, WeChat them, whatever you need to do. Let them know that you're doing well and how great XCM is doing and how they should take part. And buy some XCM as usual. Don't pay attention to prices, as I always say. Have a great weekend, guys. Tag me on Telegram at Kevin Murcko. Tag me on Twitter at Kevin Murcko. Ask me anything you want. I usually respond. If I don't, ask me again. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks a lot, and see you guys here next week. Cheers.